AOC recently went nuclear on some Republicans on the House floor, and I want to play these clips and look over the best moments to just remind everyone why transphobia is really low IQ behavior and isn't acceptable in any situation ever.
Republicans who have voted consistently against the Violence Against Women Act, who have taken away the right of all women to choose and have control over their own body, who, as women are bleeding out in parking lots across the country, standing there, allowing us to die, now want to pretend today that they care about women. And why? To open up gender and, yes, genital examinations into little girls in this country in the so-called name of attacking trans girls. And to that, today, what we have to say are two words: not today.
Yeah, let's be all the way for real. Conservatives support this bill because it allows adults to look at children's genitals in the name of gender equality. But AOC makes a really prescient point here. Republicans don't actually care about women's rights. And I think this is another pattern that we can see from the right and begin to call out. They try and utilize this premise that they think gives them moral high grounds to justify their bigotry, and they do it across the board. The problem is it begins to become obvious. Trans people make them uncomfortable, right? But transphobia is unpopular. So instead, they frame it as, well, we're protecting women's rights, and the way that they can do that is call out, well, bathrooms and sports are two easy ones, right? Despite, again, voting against women's bodily autonomy, voting against the Violence Against Women's Act. Clearly, women aren't on the forefront of their concerns. But when it gives them the moral high ground for their bigotry, but the rapist that leads their party, the guy who's done sexual assault and then defamed his victim, we'll just leave that on the background. It's the same with racism. You see it, right? And their attacks on like CRT, DEI, affirmative action, they can't be open about what it's actually about. So instead they frame it as, well, we care about merit. It's meritocracy we want to preserve, despite them not caring when Trump appoints unqualified white people to his cabinet, never having any outrage over any unqualified white hires in general. It's clear what the actual underlying motivation is every time when these moral high ground issues that they claim they only care about when it's attached to an underlying cultural issue.
Trans girls are girls. And for all the folks that are so concerned, thank you for your concern about women for the first time that I've seen. I don't know about y'all, I don't know who's been to gym class lately, but girls, even if you only believe in two genders, I've played co-ed sports all the time. But what this also opens the door for is for women to try to perform a very specific kind of femininity for the very kind of men who are drafting this bill, and to open up questioning of who is a woman because of how we look, how we present ourselves, and yes, what we choose to do with our bodies. I know who loves this bill. Yes, bigoted folks love this bill. Assaulters love this bill. But also, CEOs love this bill because Los Angeles is on fire right now. And this is the #1 priority this majority has.
And this is the real kicker here. Republicans say we need to condition aid to California, yet they haven't wrote up those conditions, haven't worked that out, not even concerned about it while California burns. They haven't worked out any kind of legislation for water infrastructure, climate change preventative measures, but they have produced a transphobic bill in which more people voted against trans athletes than there are trans athletes. Like, seriously, that's a real statistic. 0.00002% of the population are trans female athletes. That's around 70 people. This is a complete non-issue. Like, these people are insane, especially when you consider like a good chunk of that 70 are people competing in like high school, not at a professional level where it doesn't really matter. And then you consider on top of that, how many of these are like sports where it also doesn't really matter, like badminton or like, I don't know, chess, like, like what non-contact sports, like how many of these in high school does it really matter? And then again, trans women are literally just women. Genders are like made up categories that humans created. The data supports like on a professional level, advantages being minimized when the Olympic guidelines are followed. So like what's even the problem here, even if it was like 7 million trans people like they like to pretend? It's just bigotry, right? It's fascists trying to do oppression where they feel like they can get away with it. And since transgenderism is now just entering the mainstream in terms of like, is it socially acceptable? And what do people think and feel about it? So a lot of people are either like undecided or just haven't really thought about it. They know that they can get away with it here. They did this with gay people for as long as we let them. They did this with black people, with women. They're doing it with immigrants right now. Like, this is just how fascism works. And part of us as anti-fascists, part of our duties is to call it out when we see it, to stop it before it happens.